Hello everyone, it's David here. I'm back today with another editing tutorial for you. We're going to take this image, we're going to turn it into this image, hopefully. Hopefully I can redo this. Okay, a big shout out to Drew Booker. I'll put his thing on the screen now. He styled the image, he got Ella, oh my god, I was so close. He got Ella with this style, like with the scarf around her face and things like that. So the first thing straight off the bat that I did was I grabbed one of my presets. Now this preset is a very basic preset. I don't sell presets just because I don't really see the point. You can see exactly what I did to get this preset in this tutorial. So pretty much I hit auto on the basic settings, just let it do its thing. I've got a custom white balance set on it, so it kind of brings the temperature down and it adds a little bit of a tint as well. Yeah, auto settings on the rest. The only thing I added to it was I minused a little bit of texture off. I think I'll go around 23%. We are adding a custom tone curve, so I've upped in the bottom corner, as you can see, I've upped that a little bit, and then I've just kind of added a standard S going down on the shadows and then up on the highlight. Okay, over to the HSL tab. So as you can see, aqua, straight over to the blue side, because then I'm getting rid of all the saturation out of my aqua and blue. I pretty much don't want to have any of it in. If I do bring that back up, you'll see it loads in the scarf, and that's not what I'm wanting from this. And then on the luminance, I've just upped the luminance so that instead of having like something where it's quite dark and whatever, there's a contrast, there's a difference within the shadows and highlights on the scarf. Okay, split toning. I've not added any split toning to it at all. Usually it is something I will go in and do, but for this one, I've not added anything. I don't feel like it needs it, but just because of how well the skin's popping off anyway. Detail, I go in and I add sharpening afterwards anyway, so this will be upped, but this adds a standard of 30 sharpening and some little bit of noise reduction, just 10 on the noise reduction scale, nothing really. Lens corrections, obviously I've got the lens profiling enabled just to get rid of them, that slight kind of vignetting and whatever else that you get from the natural lens. Effects, I've got this really nice, I like adding this kind of vignette because it's very, as you can see, it's very subtle, but it affects more of all of the image instead of just the edges of the image. So it changes the midpoint to 0, roundness up to 17, feather and highlights both up to 100, and then I'm dropping it just a little bit. So this is where the image, like the softness of a skin and the color of a skin really comes through, and it's always in the calibration for me. I prefer using calibration to edit my color, as you saw in last week's. Just by changing this, it's giving you that like softer skin. I'll always drop the saturation on pretty much everything in this tab, just because I don't want things to look like that. I don't want it to look orange. I want it to look as natural as possible. So that's everything I'm going to do in Lightroom that's going to edit the image and edit the color on this photo. The next thing I'm going to do in Lightroom is just a little bit of spot removal. I'm going to speed this up so you can see it, but there's no point in you watching me do this. So now the image, I've got rid of all of the small blemishes and things like that. I'm going to do 3 quick layers. One of the layers is going to be a texture over the skin. I really want the skin to pop, and the new texture tool in Lightroom, is absolutely incredible. So I'm going to add a bit of minus texture over a skin. All I'm going to do for that is head over to the brush tool, and I'm going to select auto mask, make sure that's ticked. Have a small feather for the size of your brush. Keep my brush around that size, and I'm just going to draw around a skin. Again, I'm going to speed this up, and then we'll get to what settings I'll use for it. Oh, also make sure you have the show select mask overlay, so you know where you're brushing. Okay, thanks. Okay, cool. So that is the first mask done over the front of her face. All I'm going to add to this is a bit of minus on the texture and a bit of minus on the clarity, but I'm going to add about 8 on the sharpness. Okay, so once this layer is done, I'm then going to do pretty much the exact opposite. I'm wanting this to really pop, so I'm going to add quite a bit of texture to this, and I'm going to add a little bit of clarity and a bit of sharpness to it. Okay, so immediately you can see that it's done pretty much what I want it to do. I might just go in and add a touch of contrast as well. Okay, so this is my third and final layer of texture that I'll be adding. As you can see, the flow wasn't up that much, so it was quite light. I was constantly clicking on it, so kind of like as if you're like actually brushing lightly on a bit of paper. All I'm gonna do to it is I'm just gonna pop a little bit of texture on, not too much, a little bit of clarity and a little bit of sharpness, just to add a little bit more pop into the shadows, like I said. Final thing I'm gonna do in Lightroom is just radial filters. I'm gonna add radial filters just around the eyes, and to just brighten them up, I want the eyes to really pop. So I'm going to come down here to shadows, up the shadows quite a bit. So once you've copied over the other radial filter to the other eye, just keep the settings as is, it'll look good. I'm then going to pop in to each eye individually, and I'm going to add another radial filter just over where the pupil is. Invert this filter. I'm then going to up the exposure just slightly, and I'm going to bring the temps slightly down on it. I'm wanting to pull out more of kind of a grey eye instead of a colour, so that's why I'm just mainly doing the exposure and only a little bit on the temps. I'm then going to up the sharpness quite a bit, and I'm going to up the saturation. That's looking more to where I want it. Okay, so then do the same thing, duplicate that one, and simply move it over to the other eye. So we've got everything we need finished in Photoshop, in Lightroom. It's now just time to head over to Photoshop, do a few little bits and bobs and changes, make it really pop. And there's a hair, if you've not noticed, there's a hair going across her eye, and I really want to remove that. I promise you that Photoshop never runs this slow when on like day to day for my normal stuff. It only ever runs this slow when I'm using my screen recorder. My computer makes a fucking awful noise as well. Hurrah! It is in Photoshop. We are ready to go. Okay, so the very few changes I'm going to do in here. First off, let's duplicate a layer. That way we've got a base layer. I'm just going to get rid of this crease on her face. I think it's like where her mouth goes like there, this part. So I just want to quickly get rid of that. So I'm going to go over to the spot healing brush. Looking good. I'm now just going to go around the skin and just improve upon some just very small blemishes, just see what Photoshop can do. Right, now that's finished, let's get rid of this hair. So I'm going to zoom in quite a lot, and on the spot removal brush, I'm going to make it as thin as I feel like is necessary, because I don't want to destroy too much of her face, and I don't want it to look obvious that there was once a hair there. And I'm just going to go over it just a little bit at a time. I'm not wanting to do like big sections of it. So we've gotten rid of the hair just by patching it up like that. Looks great. We've changed a few little bits on the skin using the patch tool. This is just basic image retouching. I'm not doing anything crazy detailed here. There's really not much to it. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate our layer again. So I'm going to add a Gaussian blur to this image. I do this to almost every image. I'm going to hit enter. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the blending mode down to screen, and I'm going to change the opacity according to the image. So for this one, I'm going to go probably about maybe about 20 actually. So yeah, so I'm only going to go to 20. So I'm blurring my top image, and then changing the blending mode to screen, and then changing the opacity to 20. And all that's doing, if you look, it's just adding a bit of brightness to it, and it's just making the highlights on her skin pop just that little bit more. It's also just smoothing the skin in general just a touch more. And that's it. That is our final image. That is the image is fully finished. I'm now ready to post this on Instagram. I think it absolutely looks stunning. Yet again, just to kind of summarize, I've gone from this image out of camera, which looks absolutely insane, and I've edited it to this image. If anyone's got any questions, please just drop them in the comments, DM me on Instagram, do what you want, and I'll try and get back to you. If you end up doing an image like this yourself, I'd love to see it, so please drop me a DM, tag me in it, whatever, tell me that you've used this tutorial, it'd be great. Apart from that, that's pretty much everything. So I'll see you all next time. I don't know what I'm doing next time, but I'll see you then.